Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. It was 2010 and the world seemed to be moving at breakneck speed, leaving some behind in its relentless march forward. Among those struggling to keep up was Amy, a young woman trapped in a body that felt alien to her. As she trudged through the bustling sidewalks, her eyes fixed on the cracked concrete beneath her feet, Amy couldn't shake the weight of her brother's words from earlier that day. They echoed in her mind, a cruel reminder of the rejection she faced even from those who were supposed to love her unconditionally. "You're not my brother anymore," he had spat, his face contorted with disgust. The memory stung, fresh and raw. Amy pulled her oversized hoodie tighter around her frame, as if it could shield her from the pain of her family's rejection. She had always known that coming out as transgender would be difficult, but nothing could have prepared her for the complete and utter abandonment she now faced. Her father's reaction had been even worse. The man who had once taught her to ride a bike and cheered at her Little League games now couldn't even look her in the eye. His silence was deafening, a void that threatened to swallow Amy whole. "Get out," he had said, his voice cold and unfamiliar. "I don't have a son anymore." Those words had been the final push that sent Amy spiraling into a world of darkness and self-destruction. Now, as she wandered the unforgiving streets of the city, she felt more alone than ever before. The soft glow of a dingy bar caught her attention, promising a temporary escape from the thoughts that plagued her. Amy hesitated for a moment, her hand hovering over the door handle. She knew that drinking wouldn't solve her problems, but the allure of numbness was too strong to resist. Pushing through the heavy wooden door, Amy was enveloped by the smoky atmosphere and the dull roar of conversation. She made her way to the bar, perching on a sticky stool and signaling the bartender. "Whiskey, neat," she mumbled, her voice barely audible over the din of the bar. The bartender, a grizzled man with kind eyes, studied her for a moment before nodding and pouring her drink. He slid the glass across the scarred wooden surface, and Amy wrapped her trembling fingers around it. As the first sip of whiskey burned its way down her throat, Amy closed her eyes and let out a shaky breath. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine a world where she was accepted, where her family embraced her for who she truly was. But reality crashed back in as she opened her eyes, the harsh fluorescent lights of the bar a stark reminder of her current situation. Hours passed in a blur of drinks and hazy conversations with strangers who didn't care to know her story. As the night wore on, Amy found herself stumbling out of the bar, her vision blurred and her steps unsteady. The cool night air hit her face, temporarily sobering her enough to realize she had no idea where she was going. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she fumbled to retrieve it. Through bleary eyes, she saw a text from her childhood best friend, Autumn. They hadn't spoken in years, not since Amy had left their small town to start a new life in the city. But now, seeing Autumn's name on the screen felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. "Hey, it's been a while. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Miss you." Amy's thumb hovered over the reply button, her mind racing with all the things she wanted to say. How could she possibly explain everything that had happened? How could she tell Autumn that the person she once knew no longer existed? In the end, Amy pocketed the phone without replying. The weight of her secrets felt too heavy to share, even with someone who had once known her better than anyone else. The next few years passed in a haze of addiction and self-loathing. Amy bounced between low-paying jobs and dingy apartments, never staying in one place long enough to form any real connections. She watched from the sidelines as the world continued to turn, feeling like a ghost haunting the fringes of society. It wasn't until a particularly bad night in 2015 that Amy hit rock bottom. She found herself huddled in a dirty alley, her body racked with withdrawal symptoms and her mind clouded with despair. As the first rays of dawn began to peek over the city skyline, Amy made a decision that would change the course of her life. With shaking hands, she dialed the number for a local rehab center. The voice on the other end was calm and reassuring, a beacon of hope in the darkness that had consumed her for so long. "I need help," Amy whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I can't do this anymore." The road to recovery was long and fraught with challenges. There were days when Amy wanted nothing more than to give up, to retreat back into the numbing embrace of addiction. But with each passing day, she found herself growing stronger, more resilient. In group therapy sessions, Amy finally found the courage to speak her truth. She shared her struggles with gender identity, the pain of rejection from her family, and the years of self-destruction that had followed. To her surprise, she was met with understanding and acceptance from her fellow patients. "You're incredibly brave," one woman told her after a particularly emotional session. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel ashamed of who you are." Those words became a mantra for Amy, a reminder that she deserved love and acceptance just as she was. As she worked through her addiction and began to confront the underlying issues that had led her down that dark path, Amy also started to embrace her true identity. With the help of supportive counselors and a network of LGBTQ+ resources, Amy began her transition. Each step of the process felt like coming home to herself, shedding the ill-fitting skin she had been forced to wear for so long. By 2020, Amy had been sober for 5 years and was living as her authentic self. She had found a job as a graphic designer at a small but progressive firm, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she was on solid ground. It was on a crisp autumn day in 2024 that Amy's past and present collided in the most unexpected way. She was sitting in her favorite coffee shop, working on a project for a client, when a familiar voice broke through her concentration. "Amy? Is that you?" Looking up, Amy found herself face to face with Autumn, her childhood best friend. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as they stared at each other, years of memories and unspoken words hanging in the air between them. Autumn's eyes widened as she took in Amy's appearance, recognition dawning on her face. "Oh my God, it really is you," she breathed, a mix of emotions playing across her features. Amy's heart raced as she struggled to find the right words. This was the moment she had both longed for and dreaded for years. Taking a deep breath, she gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Hi, Autumn," she said softly. "It's been a long time. Would you like to sit down?" Autumn nodded, sliding into the chair with a grace that Amy remembered so well from their youth. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the weight of unasked questions hanging heavy between them. Finally, Autumn broke the silence. "I've been trying to find you for years," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "After you left town, it was like you disappeared off the face of the earth. I was so worried about you." Amy's throat tightened with guilt. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I needed to figure some things out. I wasn't in a good place for a long time." Autumn reached across the table, her hand hovering just above Amy's. "What happened?" she asked gently. "Where have you been all this time?" And so, Amy began to tell her story. She spoke of the years of confusion and self-hatred, of the rejection from her family and the spiral into addiction. She talked about her journey to sobriety and self-acceptance, and finally, about her transition. As she spoke, Amy watched Autumn's face carefully, searching for any sign of disgust or rejection. But all she saw was compassion and a deep, unwavering love that took her breath away. When Amy finished speaking, silence fell between them once again. Autumn sat back in her chair, processing everything she had just heard. Then, to Amy's surprise, she reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you for trusting me with your story," Autumn said, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I always knew there was something special about you, Amy. I'm so proud of you for finding the courage to be your true self." Those words, spoken with such sincerity and acceptance, broke something open inside Amy. Tears spilled down her cheeks as years of pent-up emotion came pouring out. Autumn moved around the table, wrapping her arms around Amy and holding her close as she cried. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of Autumn's embrace, Amy felt a sense of homecoming she had never experienced before. It was as if all the broken pieces of her life were finally falling into place. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Amy and Autumn rekindled the deep connection they had shared in their youth. They spent long hours talking, laughing, and rediscovering each other. Autumn was endlessly patient, always ready to listen and learn as Amy shared more about her experiences as a transgender woman. Their friendship blossomed into something more, a love that was both familiar and entirely new. Autumn's unwavering support and acceptance helped heal wounds that Amy had thought would never close. On a warm summer evening in 2025, as they walked hand in hand through Central Park, Autumn turned to Amy with a nervous smile. "I have something I want to ask you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Amy's heart skipped a beat as Autumn dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from her pocket. "Amy," Autumn began, her eyes shining with love and determination. "You are the bravest, most beautiful person I have ever known. I love you for exactly who you are, and I want to spend the rest of my life by your side. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy streamed down Amy's face as she nodded, unable to form words. Autumn slipped the ring onto her finger, and as they embraced, Amy felt a sense of completeness she had never thought possible. The wedding was a small but joyous affair, held in a picturesque garden on the outskirts of the city. Amy's brother, who had reached out to make amends years earlier, stood proudly by her side as her best man. Her father, though, was noticeably absent, his seat in the front row a painful reminder of the relationships that couldn't be mended. As Amy walked down the aisle, her eyes locked with Autumn's, she saw her entire future reflected in that loving gaze. The officiant's words washed over her, but all she could focus on was the woman standing before her, promising to love and cherish her for all eternity. "I do," Amy said, her voice strong and clear, free from the doubt and self-loathing that had plagued her for so long. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the small gathering of friends and family erupted in cheers and applause. Amy looked out at the sea of smiling faces, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this moment. Later, as they swayed together during their first dance, Autumn leaned in close, her lips brushing Amy's ear. "You know," she whispered, "I always knew you were meant for greatness. I'm so proud to be your wife." Amy pulled back slightly, meeting Autumn's gaze with a smile that radiated pure happiness. "And I'm proud to be yours," she replied, her voice filled with emotion. "Thank you for loving all of me." As the night wore on and their guests celebrated around them, Amy took a moment to reflect on the long and winding path that had led her to this point. She thought of the scared, confused person she had once been, struggling to find her place in the world. She remembered the dark days of addiction and self-hatred, the pain of rejection and loneliness. But now, surrounded by love and acceptance, Amy knew that every struggle had been worth it. She had fought hard to become the woman she was meant to be, and in doing so, she had found a love and happiness beyond her wildest dreams. The night ended with Amy and Autumn slipping away from the reception, hand in hand, ready to begin their new life together. As they drove off into the warm summer night, the sound of their friends and family cheering them on fading into the distance, Amy felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. She had traveled a long and difficult road to reach this point, but as she looked at the woman beside her, Amy knew that every step had been leading her here, to this moment, to this love, to the beautiful life that stretched out before them. In 2030, they made the decision to start a family of their own. The process was not without its hurdles, but their determination never wavered. After months of paperwork, interviews, and nervous anticipation, they finally received the call they had been waiting for. "We have a match," the adoption agency representative said, her voice brimming with excitement. "A baby girl. She's yours if you want her." Tears of joy streamed down their faces as they embraced, overwhelmed by the realization that their family was about to grow. 3 weeks later, they brought home their daughter, Lily, a tiny bundle with curious eyes and a shock of dark hair. As Amy cradled Lily in her arms for the first time, she felt a love so profound it took her breath away. Looking up at Autumn, who was gazing at them both with adoration, Amy knew that this was the family she had always dreamed of, but never dared to hope for. The early days of parenthood were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and moments of pure magic. Amy and Autumn took turns getting up for midnight feedings, supporting each other through the exhaustion and reveling in the joy of watching their daughter grow. As Lily grew older, Amy and Autumn were committed to raising her with an understanding and appreciation for diversity. They surrounded her with books, media, and experiences that celebrated all kinds of families and identities. Their home was filled with love, laughter, and open conversations about acceptance and equality. When Lily was 5, she came home from kindergarten with a drawing of their family. 3 stick figures stood hand in hand, labeled Mommy, Mama, and Me. Amy's heart swelled with pride as Lily explained her artwork. "That's you, Mommy," she said, pointing to the figure with long hair. "And that's Mama," she continued, indicating the slightly taller figure. "And that's me in the middle because you both keep me safe." Amy knelt down, pulling Lily into a tight hug. "That's right, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "We'll always keep you safe." As Lily grew, so did her understanding of her family's unique journey. Amy and Autumn were always open about Amy's transgender identity, answering Lily's questions with age-appropriate honesty. They taught her about the importance of acceptance, both of oneself and others. There were challenges, of course. The world wasn't always kind, and there were times when Lily faced confusion or even cruelty from those who didn't understand her family. But Amy and Autumn had equipped her with resilience and a strong sense of self-worth. When Lily was 10, she came home from school one day, her face set in a determined expression that Amy recognized all too well. "Some kids at school were saying mean things about our family," Lily announced. "They said it's not normal to have 2 moms, and that you're not a real woman." Amy felt her heart clench, the old pain threatening to resurface. But before she could respond, Lily continued. "I told them they were wrong," she said, her chin lifted defiantly. "I said my family is full of love, and that's what matters. And I said you're the best mommy in the world, no matter what anyone says." Tears welled in Amy's eyes as she pulled Lily close. "You're absolutely right, sweetheart," she said softly. "Love is what makes a family, and we have that in abundance." That night, as Amy recounted the incident to Autumn, she felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. Despite all the hardships she had faced, she had created this beautiful life filled with love and acceptance. "We've done good," Autumn said, squeezing Amy's hand. "Lily is growing up to be an incredible person?" Amy nodded, her heart full. "We have," she agreed. "And it's all because we chose love every step of the way." As the years passed, Amy watched with pride as Lily grew into a compassionate, confident young woman. She excelled in school and pursued her passion for art, just like Amy. On Lily's 18th birthday, as they sat around the dinner table celebrating, Amy found herself reflecting on the long journey that had brought her to this moment. From the scared, confused person she had once been, to the confident, loved woman she was now, every step had led her here. Autumn caught her eye across the table, a knowing smile playing on her lips. After all these years, she could still read Amy like an open book. "What are you thinking about, love?" Autumn asked softly. Amy looked around at her family, her wife, her daughter, and the chosen family that had gathered to celebrate with them. She thought of the struggles she had faced, the pain she had endured, and the love that had ultimately saved her. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am," Amy replied, her voice filled with emotion. How grateful I am for this life, for this family, for the journey that brought me here. Autumn reached out, taking Amy's hand in hers. "We're the lucky ones," she said. "You taught us all what it means to be true to yourself, no matter the cost. You showed us the power of love and acceptance." Lily raised her glass, her eyes shining with admiration. "To Mom," she said, "the bravest woman I know and the best mother I could have asked for." As their family and friends echoed the toast, Amy felt a warmth spread through her chest. This was her legacy. Not just the daughter she had raised or the career she had built, but the love she had nurtured and the lives she had touched. In that moment, surrounded by the family she had fought so hard to have, Amy knew that every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt had been worth it. She had become the woman she was always meant to be, and in doing so had created a life filled with more love and joy than she had ever dared to dream possible. As the night wore on and the celebration continued around her, Amy looked to the future with hope and excitement. She didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but she knew that with her family by her side, she could face anything. For Amy had learned the most important lesson of all, that love in its purest form has the power to heal, to transform, and to create a life of unimaginable beauty. And that was a truth worth fighting for every single day. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.